Coming up in this episode.
Like, I'm not a big believer in like this, tech miracle thing where we're going to suck all the carbon out of the air and, allowing us to stick to our sustainable way of living. But I do believe, though, that tech is an amazing potential for coordinating people and also facilitating their lives and removing friction.
It's also okay just to be okay at something, because sometimes that's all you need. You don't need to be great at it. You just need it to be done. In fact, the chances are it will probably be quite shit to begin with, and that's okay. At least it's being done. And to your point, you will learn from it. You will get better at it. And the problem is, a lot of people I speak to, especially, they're just paralyzed by the fact that it needs to be done, and they don't know how to do it, that it never happens. And that's not useful for anyone.
I think it also makes more sense on the business side of things, right? I'm being very transparent here. Like, why would I ask you as a business to pay me if I'm not providing you with like exponential utility, right? I mean, right. My rule is more give. And once you've given enough, then you're legitimate to ask. But don't go and ask, guys, like, pay us for what? Like, what the fuck? Like, you guys are like 3 users.
The Founders Unplugged podcast, hosted by Greg McCallum. Raw, unedited conversations with entrepreneurs and startup founders.
I just sent you a message.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just saw the time. I was like, oops, I'm 3 minutes late.
It's okay. It's all right. You got to be fashionably late to these things. How are you?
All good, thanks. Yeah, I wasn't doing it on purpose, but yeah, all good. How are you, Greg? All good?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, very well. I just had a very stimulating conversation with a founder about an amazing product, so I'm all pumped nice. For today. Yeah, so when you see something that you're just like, that's clever,
Nice.
Yeah, and good social impact and all that kind of stuff. It just gets my juices flowing. This is why I love talking to founders, because you guys, you're my lifeblood. I'm like a vampire that just sucks on vampire blood, on founder blood to keep me alive. That's what it is. Nice. So yeah, keeps me going. But tell me, what's been going on with you since we last spoke? What have you been up to?
Quite a lot, actually. Like, we are really focusing on the launch of our product, and yeah, I mean, I don't know where to start, to be honest. Like, a lot of things to do. We have like beta testers who reported a couple of things, so we're fixing the product, working on communications, partnerships, lots of things going on the professional side of things. So it's exciting, definitely.
So juggling all the plates in the air and everything like that. Well, that's awesome, man. I'm really glad to hear. We'll definitely get more into that in a second. So, look, there's not much structure to this show, right? It's a conversation. That's like how I explained it to you before. But there is one piece of structure that I like to do from the beginning, and that's just to have my guests introduce themselves, tell those listening or watching a bit about you and the business, and then we'll get into it.
Sure. Sound-wise, how do I sound? All good, or should I put my headset?
Very relaxing. That's how you sound.
Okay, cool.
I could listen to an audiobook of your voice. You sound wonderful.
Wow. Okay. Well, you know how to put your guest in the right setting. All right.
No, it sounds great.
Okay. Well, if at some point I'm breaking down or anything, just let me know. I'm gonna try.
I'll try not to make you break down. We won't get that emotional.
All right. Perfect. I'm hard to break down.
So cool. Yeah, go ahead. Introduce yourself. Tell me tell everyone a bit about you and a bit about the business.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Antoine. I'm French, as you can tell with my accent that I'm trying to disguise a bit, but it's still there. It's sticking to my voice. And so I studied in France. I'm 27. I studied in France in engineering, so computer science. I also had the chance to go to South Korea to finish my studies, and I came in London 5 years and a half ago, where I joined a fintech, in which I spent 5 years. I ended up head of research. That was a very exciting time for me because in very few months, I got promoted a couple of times and ended up managing the full R&D kind of section of the business, which was really, really exciting for me. And I decided to leave it around a year ago, so something like that. So the numbers don't add up. So I spent 4 years and a half there, but I mean, that's pretty much the thing. To start my own business, which is called Bluteshi. It's a tech company. It's an impact company where we we use tech to make it easy for individuals to behave more sustainably, to consume more sustainably. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. I guess we can dive into any details if you're keen, but like our product is called Ganddee. It's Google Maps for sustainable shops. So we really want to remove frictions to sustainable consumption. And I really believe that tech has a big role to play here. I think I have a pretty big opinion about like the tech sector and how tech can be used for mitigating climate change. Like I'm not a big believer in like this, tech miracle thing where we're going to suck all the carbon out of the air and, allowing us to stick to our sustainable way of living. But I do believe, though, that tech is an amazing potential for coordinating people and also facilitating their lives and removing frictions. So this is really the angle we're taking here. So yeah, I guess that's like the short summary about me. But obviously, if you have any more questions, happy to tell you more.
Oh, I've got a ton of questions. Of course I have. Yeah. Yeah. So well, tell me a bit more about the company and what it does and how it works. Like I suppose that's what I'm wondering and what everyone else is wondering. And I know you've briefly explained this to me before when we spoke before, but still remind me and more importantly, tell everyone else out there. Reduces friction how?
Of course, yeah. So here's the thing. So I started this company because I talk to a lot of people, and climate change is something that is quite close to my heart. And I talked to a lot of people even before I started the business, being like, hey, are you worried about climate change? Are you doing something about it, etc.? Just to try to understand, what people were thinking about this thing. I was genuinely curious, not even with a business idea in mind. And one thing that struck me was that a lot of the people I talked to, whether it was in London, in Paris, or somewhere else, told me the same thing. Climate change sucks, but what can I do about it? And so I just genuinely felt a general sense of like people were overwhelmed, they were powerless, and I was like, okay, we have to solve this. Like, what the fuck? We are 8 billion on this planet, and we cannot all be lost, hoping that some politician or some whatever company is just going to come and solve the crisis like that. So I tried to dig a bit more, and I was like trying to understand what was the pain point. Okay, well, why don't you do something about it? Like, are you trying to reduce your plastic consumption? And then I realized, well, people were just lost because there's a lot of greenwashing. They don't know what's sustainable. They don't have time because a lot of people are telling me, I have kids, I have a 9-to-5. I don't want to spend like hours doing due diligence in every shop I'm going to buy things from. And then I was like, okay, cool. Now we're getting into it. So then I was like, how can we solve this problem? How can we make it as easy as possible for individuals to go and shop their values, because they seem to have values. And that's when how the idea actually came. So what Ganddee does is we aggregate all publicly available information about shops related to sustainability. So we look at their certifications. We look at if they make claims such as we are a social enterprise, which many companies, quite a few companies do nowadays. We look at their incorporation structure. Are you really a social enterprise, or are you claiming to be one? Because they're like specific status for social enterprises in the UK. We look at, if they claim to be vegan, great. We look at their menu, for instance. So we look at all publicly available information we can find about shops, and we use that to list them on a map, which looks like Google Maps. So in fact, as a consumer, what you do is you're like, hey, I'm in London, I want to buy a coffee, I want to buy clothes, I want to buy toys, books, whatever. And we give you the shops that are listed on Ganddee around you so that you have nothing to search for. It's the same UX as Google Maps, so it's pretty, you're probably using a VPN or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
okay, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, it's probably not working for some reason, but it's.
Yeah. I've got all kinds of annoying stuff installed that keeps crashing things.
Yeah, exactly. It's live in London. It's working. We have like hundreds of users using it every month, and so yeah, that's pretty much the idea. So it's Google Maps for sustainable shops, and on there you can see all the data we found for shops. So you don't have to trust us. Be like, hey, close your eyes. We know what we do. Go there. We tell you this. No. We empower you with the data you need to make a difference, and then you are the one making the choice at the end. So we just do this aggregation work for you. And so we are live in London. We launched an MVP. So when I kind of came up with the idea, I was like, okay, we need to kind of test it. So I put this MVP that you try to open in your web app which is kind of covering London. It's live in London, and I was keen to see, is there interest? Are the people I talk to, the people who told me their troubles, like their pain points, are they using it? And if so, what can they tell me about it? Like, do they like it? Is it kind of solving what they want? And so yeah, the numbers have been pretty promising. We've had like hundreds of users every month using the product, giving us feedback. Oh, I'd like this. Oh, I'd like that. Oh, this is confusing, etc. And all of this feedback to actually like work on the mobile app that's going to be launched in 10 days. So
oh wow, cool.
We are just about to launch the mobile app. We are in the final tests phase with our beta testers, and it's going to be live on the Apple Store and Play Store. So Android. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So this data that it's taking, so where is it finding that you said it's publicly available data, so it's taking data presumably that the companies have already put out there. So how are you able to, or maybe you don't have this yet, but maybe you've been thinking about this, how are you able to validate some of this data? Because like you said, there's a lot of greenwashing, right? If I as a company, I could just put on my website, I do this, I do that, I do this. It could be complete bullshit. Like how can you mitigate and filter through the noise and make sure that there's some verification there?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very good question. And so, like, I don't think there's any silver bullet for that, because information can be manipulated, even on third-party websites, what's going on at the table. Like, if you really want to take this adversarial mindset, then, of course, unless you're omniscient and you can access the supply chains of every shops and everything, like, you cannot know.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes shops themselves don't know. Like, they can only know, like, one or two, like, kind of like
a couple of degrees of separation, and after that it's ambiguous, right? Yeah,
exactly. And their supply chain,
and no one's hands are clean. Let's be honest, no one's hands are clean in the world when it comes to these sort of things, whether it's sustainability or social impact or all that sort of stuff. There's always some dirt somewhere, right?
Well, I mean, we live in a very interconnected world, right? So like, this is the thing, unless you're omniscient, which no one is, you cannot have full. Well, but like you cannot have full, like, conviction that like something is really sustainable. And I would just add something about that, which is, I think, and I will go back and answer your question properly. I'm not trying to avoid it, but like, on the sustainability aspect, it's another very key aspect that we're highlighting, which is that there's no such thing as, it's going to sound maybe controversial, but hear me out. There's no such thing as sustainable. Like, sustainable is a component, is a combination of things. So for instance, a paper bag may not be sustainable. It may be more sustainable than a plastic bag, but the use you make of this bag is defining whether or not it is sustainable. Because in fact, if you throw a paper bag every minute of the day, you use it, you throw it away, you take a new one, you use it, you throw it away, it's not sustainable at all. You keep having to cut new bloody trees or recycle new paper, which is energy intensive as a process, to generate new bags. So a material itself cannot just be sustainable. You can't just say, oh, it's paper, I close my eyes, it's sustainable, I can use it in any way I want. No, the material plus the ways in which it's manufactured, etc., and the use you make of it defines whether this is sustainable. A plastic bag may be the most sustainable option, depending on the context, because if you use it for 10 years, you produce one bag once, and then you use it for 10 years, as opposed to throwing paper every single hour. This is more sustainable, because it's a matter of like managing planetary resources. So it's something that's quite important. And I think it's something that's very, like that lacks emphasis in this space, because you have a lot of brands and a lot of people that are going to say, oh, you know what, we do sustainable. Well, not really, because if your business model is pushing me to buy your bloody product every week because it breaks down, it may be made of paper or dirt or anything, it's not really going to be sustainable, because even if it's made out of like hydrogen or whatever, sand or whatever thing that is super, like that is very available in nature with very big resources, there's still a manufacturing process involved. I mean, unless you're really selling me like a piece of mud literally in a jar, in which case, I would be stupid to buy it. But you see what I mean. So it's really important. So now going back to your question, so what we do is we try to cover as much ground as we possibly can. So we look at, for instance, third-party certifications. Again, I'm not saying they are perfect, but they are third parties. So, like this is an extra person outside of the business we review that comes and accredits them or reviews their supply chains, etc. And these people, they have websites of their own where they list the companies that they certify, etc. So what we do is we can actually use them to say, well, we realize that shop XYZ in street ABC is certified. They say it on their website, that's great, but we won't be linking you to the website of the shop. We will be linking you to the site of the certification body so that you can actually look at what the third party is saying about this shop. So we are leveraging these kind of like third-party websites when we can. And for other self-asserted claims, such as, oh, I'm vegan, or, we give some of our money to charity, where like the link is a bit harder to draw because we can't follow the money. We don't live in their like receipt, etc. We don't have access to their like tax reports and etc. for private companies. Then we link you to this information because we think it's important for you as a consumer to know what the shop is claiming to do. And then when you visit the shop, you can report to us if you see any irregularities. So if you have a shop that says, oh, we are a zero waste shop, we are super eco-friendly, blah, 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 we link you to the page of their website where they assert all of these things. It's self-asserted claims, so we believe it still has value. But so we make it easy for you to access it. And then if you visit the shop and you're like, hold on a minute, I saw on Ganddee that shop ABC was supposed to be a zero waste, blah, 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 blah. And when I visited, I saw the door open in the middle of winter. They were eating the outdoors. I saw plastics everywhere. Okay, I'm going to go on Ganddee. I'm going to click report the bloody thing, and I'm going to say what I saw. And so we also use the community to help us sanitize this because it's a bit of the same approach as Waze, right? I mean, Waze provides you with a platform to report accidents along the road. The Waze people are not driving all over the place and telling you there's an accident here. They give you the means for you to report it and to keep the platform running. And what we do is we do that. We are data-driven, so we use our data to really empower you as an individual to make more informed decision. And then we say, hey, it's teamwork, right? I mean, we are not visiting the shops on a regular basis. We are analyzing online data. But if you go there, let us know what you think so that we can also use your data to cross with ours and make sure that we keep the map curated. So
I love that approach because I love the Waze app. I use it all the time. And one of the main reasons is because of the information that the community adds to it. And it's very much a community or user-led product. And I think we need more of that in these kinds of products, especially where information is so abundant that it becomes very unclear. It's very murky as to what is the truth and what isn't. And you need that continuous verification of truth these days through technology to make sure that the information you're being presented with is accurate. So I love that. I love that fact. And presumably it's not the case that if just one person says something, then that's it. You change it. There must be, a certain amount of things. So you're not going to have any bad actors coming in who maybe like rival businesses, just go in there and say, they're shit. There's got to be a certain level of accountability on both sides, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, this is really like, to me, the only way to make this work, because I think it's important to have like the fact that we are data driven and we provide our community of Ganddeezens. This is the name of users of Ganddees, it's a play on word between Ganddee and citizens.
Yeah.
We are like Ganddeezens. And I think it's important to also help, to meet people where they are. It would be, in my opinion, a mistake to simply rely on the community without doing the data aggregation, etc. before, because that would be delegating the action of defining sustainability or to our community, being like, okay, guys, you figure it out. Just tell us what's sustainable in your area. Well, not really. We don't claim we know everything, but at least we give you we give you the data to make a first, to take the first step. And we come with the first, what we consider as sustainable. It's a combination of factors, as we explain. It's all transparent. We say it on our website, what we look at, so there's no surprises. And then we can use this definition to reiterate as a community and to improve, as opposed to giving you a blank sheet of paper and be like, okay, well, you have a shop in your street that has a leaf on the logo and that uses green on the menu, then list it on your app. No, it's not. We help you. And so it's a combination of both things that we are pursuing. And again, so far so good. The moment of truth is going to come in a couple of days when we launch the mobile app in London. It's going to be covering only London, but we have hundreds of locations there. And I'm pretty happy about the feedback received by the beta testers. So we'll see how it goes. But I really believe in this potential of empowering consumers to make the change, because talking to lots and lots of people, I realized how lost people were. And I don't believe in the approach of waiting for a savior to come and save us all. I don't believe in politicians doing this, and I don't believe in like private companies that have been the cause of this issue to solve it. And for many reasons, again, it's a matter of understanding the incentives of the system. Like, if you're one of the biggest plastic polluters in the world, such as Coca-Cola Company, it's not a surprise. It's they've been receiving this nickname quite a few times already as being one of the biggest plastic polluters in the world. Why would you take the risk of modifying your supply chain to have like glass bottles and completely modifying the logistics of your business to collect your glass bottles, etc.? Why would you take such a risk when you have people buying your plastic bottles and your profits going to the roof every quarter? That makes no sense. And so, of course,
and plus that was their old business model anyway.
Yeah.
So they clearly moved from that model for a reason. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, like we are all bombarded by advertisement, and we are all being manipulated on a daily basis. Like, like brands' business is to make us think that we need their product. Like, it's not even like it's a need, like it's a human need. It's a human need for you to drink Coca-Cola. It's a human need for you to get the new like car, the new thing. It's part of who they are. Like, they want to sell things to us. So we are manipulated on a daily basis. So of course, I'm not putting the blame on consumers, saying, this is our fault because I'm a consumer. It's our fault. We should be more conscious. No, like, it's hard. We are navigating a very wild world with a lot of manipulation around. But the thing I'm trying to highlight is that we have to break the deadlock we are in, where consumers wait on companies to change, which makes no sense because companies make a ton of money the way things are. So why would they change? And companies kind of like won't change until we change, because if we change, then we are like changing the demand, and then supply is going to adjust. So we are a bit in a deadlock. And likewise, expecting politicians to come in and like put a fist on the table and say, you know what, like, let's just change, like, no more plastic bottles. Well, it's not going to happen, really. They have so many lobbies, so many interests, like so many jobs at stake, so many things going on. And
it's mostly money, right? Because their campaigns are mostly funded by these corporations, so they're not gonna sever those ties. I mean, it's exactly why that candidate in the United States, I forget his name now, he's becoming quite popular online. The young guy who's an ex medtech founder, millionaire. He hasn't taken any private funding whatsoever. And because he knows that that's the big problem, right? The decision and law cannot be effectively by politicians that are in the pockets of corporations. So,
I mean, exactly. I mean, we have to I think it's really important sometimes to take a step back and really look at the incentives across the system, and really try to understand what makes a specific class of actor act in a certain way. Politicians in a big part of the Western world are elected for a couple of years. There's a big power game going on, a big status game as well. They're seeking status, influence, etc. So when you're a politician, generally in the UK and France, you are elected, you're happy, and the second day you're elected, you want to make sure your party or yourself get re-elected for the next term. So there's always these things going on, and so you're always driven by short-term decisions, because if you have low employment, high growth, high GDP growth, all these kind of KPIs that define success, and we can talk about that. I think it's very flawed, but this is the way we define success today. Then you maximize your chances to be re-elected, and that's really where the thing is. So again, just going back to the first point I was making is, once you kind of start to understand what makes people act in a certain way, I think, the conclusion I came up with was the solution has to come from us, has to come from the consumer, because the consumer is the prime generator of cash flows in the system. You have 20 B2B SaaS companies, blah, 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 VC-backed B2B SaaS companies, but the final part of the chain is a B2C company. Microsoft is selling items to people, like Facebook is selling advertisement to other companies, but at the end of the day, like these companies, they probably like sell you like a toothbrush or shoes or something. There's always like the final part of the chain is always a consumer that's earning a salary, paying taxes, etc. That's actually like financing the economic machine. And to me, this is where the change has to come. And if consumers decide to say, well, fuck it, now consuming sustainably has never been easier with solutions like Ganddee, I can just go and shop my values, etc. It doesn't take any mental load for me to do so. I would decide, all things equal, to go to like this organic coffee around the corner, as opposed to going to this big chain that's clearly not making any effort to tackle the climate crisis. Then maybe at this point, 1 quarter or 2 quarters in, these companies' boards of directors are going to be like, hold on a minute, guys. Why do we have a dip? Like, what do we need to do? And we are all numbers in everyone's, dashboards, because companies, again, are monitoring everything we do. And so they will be like, hold on a minute, like, this hashtag is trendy, these companies are growing faster than us, what can we do? Oh, if people want sustainable things, we'll do it. Look at McDonald's. They've done experiments around Mac plant, etc. I don't think the board of directors of McDonald's is particularly attached to beef. I think if tomorrow everyone becomes vegan, they would have no problem to say, McDonald's becomes vegan and we do like vegan fast food. They don't care. They want profits. This is what they do. And so
you've got to play them at their own game, right? Yeah,
exactly.
But, and to some extent, that's exactly what's been happening, right? Which is why we've seen the rise of a lot of these businesses in the first place. Is the public has been demanding more of this sort of stuff. Which is why we have B Corp certified, which is why we have vegan businesses and plant-based alternatives, and all of this sort of stuff now is really important. Zero carbon. Or carbon offsetting, certification, all of this sort of stuff. And it is because of the demand of the public. The public's become more aware of these things. But like you said, a lot of it seems to be greenwashing. And it also, a lot of it is, I equate it to a similar sort of analogy of or scenario of basically a load of people on the Titanic, putting duct tape over tiny holes on the back when the front is missing. It's just like distract us with this kind of stuff when actually the bigger problem's over there. So how do we address that? Well, I think the first point is to make people see that there's a gaping hole at the front in the first place. I don't think people realize that, because I've been very open about the fact. I think it was in a couple of episodes ago, actually, I talked about the fact that I just don't believe, I'm completely disillusioned with like recycling, for example. It's complete bullshit. The whole recycling thing is complete and utter bullshit. I'm a firm believer in that. From what I understand about it, from the people I've met in certain parts of that industry, the whole thing's rubbish, literally, right? In that what you put in your recycling bin goes to landfill. It does not get recycled, the vast majority of it. But it makes everyone feel better.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I agree. Like at this stage, a big part of like solving the climate crisis is a communication problem, and we have to make people understand there's a lot of education. Like really what we try to do is, again, like, I mean, I'm talking for myself again here, but like the whole ethos of Ganddee really is to bring transparency to an opaque consumer market. By being transparent, we can have better accountability in the system, because now people see what you look, so they can come and criticize what we look at for Ganddee. That's great. If you don't agree with what we look at, let us know so we can adjust the process. But you have to be transparent to let people criticize and give you feedback. You have to build in the open. You have to give people the data. And then once you start being transparent, you start really talking like the truth, as opposed to like, trust us, we know what you do, you don't know, like, no. So I don't believe in this. And I think once the debate is going on, then you have maybe a few like iterations to do to land on something that really works well. But that's the only way to go. And to your point, there's a lot of things that aren't right. I think there are like two things. I think people like extremes generally. So on the internet in particular, if you're not on one side of the spectrum, then no one cares about you. Like you have to be very like, incisive and very opinionated about things. And this is very, in my view, the truth always lies in the middle. And that's a problem. And so like for recycling, that's the same. Recycling is needed. There are like items that genuinely should be recycled. Aluminum can be recycled many, many times. That's great. So if we can recycle it, we should. But recycling should be the last thing we do in the between reusing, repairing, etc. We should be striving to reuse as much as we possibly can, producing less, repairing what we can, And once we've exhausted all the possibilities, then yes, we should try to recycle. And again, people like extremes, so they will be like recycled, not recycled. It doesn't work like that. Like recycling, even if you're recycling aluminum or paper or something like that, we have to understand that these are processes. They require energy. Like energy doesn't come from the sky. Of course, it can come from the sun and from the wind. But all this clean energy, like all these people that say, oh yeah, but we do X, Y, Z using solar panels and stuff. Great. The bloody solar panels could have been used to power the hospitals around the corner and to like power all the segments of the economy that are currently like competing to access the energy we all need, and part of this energy being still served by fossil fuels. So we have to really make sure that we produce what we need, repair more, etc., and then recycle. And I think this is something that people really have to understand, is that there are processes. It's not just like, hey, my plastic bottle becomes a new plastic bottle like by magic. No, it's being shredded, it's being melted, it's being reprocessed, and all of this is bloody like energy intensive.
Which is why it's going to landfill, because of that is a very expensive process too. I mean, that's yes, it's energy intensive, but it's also manpower intensive, it's labor intensive, it's cost intensive, which is why local governments aren't recycling it. They're sending them to other countries, and it's going into landfill or into the sea. And yeah, to your point, this is the big problem with a lot of these sustainability or eco-friendly initiatives, is they cost not only a huge amount of energy, but a huge amount of money, which means the incentive isn't there for the company to do it. And this is like, to your point about like about making the decision though, like maybe to throw you a bit of a curveball and a counter here. One of the problems I see with a lot of this conversation, and one thing that never seems to be fully addressed, is yes, we can do what we can to maybe help people make better decisions, but ultimately it comes down to money, right? And these better decisions, these more sustainable or environmentally friendly decisions, are usually more expensive decisions. So, food, clothing, these kinds of things. I've had people on before who are founders of sustainable or circular companies looking to make a positive impact on climate change and so on. And my question's always the same. How do we solve that problem? Because at the end of the day, the very same companies that we're trying to overcome with this, that have the seats at the table, that have the politicians, in their pockets and so on, they're the ones that control the supply chain. They control how much things cost, as to a degree, right? And so the sustainable choice is always going to be more expensive.
I'm so glad you're bringing this on the table, Greg, because I couldn't disagree more. And that's perfect, because let's have a debate on this.
Yeah.
That's something I've heard many, many times by people telling me, consuming more sustainably is more expensive. And I don't think it's true. I think a lot of people associate sustainable consumption with buying, organic food at Whole Foods or something like that. Yes, of course, Whole Foods is way more expensive than your kind of local Tesco or something like that. But hey, sustainable consumption doesn't have to be about like buying this fancy organic food served by one of the most expensive grocery store in London. Like, you can buy secondhand items. Like the most sustainable items are the ones that already exist. So if you go to like a thrift store or a charity shop, you can buy a t-shirt for pennies on the pound. Like, it's super, super cheap, right? So that's not expensive at all. Like, if you stop buying bloody like bottled water in the UK or in London, like, water is safe to be like to drink in London. We are pretty happy. Like, I've traveled in countries in Africa where people would die to get water on the tap that they could drink, right? We have it on the tap. And yet so many people go and buy like bloody bottles of water for like £2, 1.5 liters, while they can get like they can pay £2 a year for their bloody for the water they're drinking. Like 1 cubic meter of water is like £2. Like, what the fuck?
If you are enjoying this episode, please subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments.
Like, it doesn't have more expensive, but I think there's too many misconceptions about that. Books. Let's talk about books. Like there are local libraries all over the place in London. I'm talking a lot about London because this is where I'm based.
Yeah.
I'm sure this applies to many other cities, major cities, but you have a lot of libraries where you can go and rent books for free. It's amazing public service paid by taxpayer, funded by taxpaying money. But people prefer to get their books delivered in one day from Amazon. Why don't you go and get a book for free? You read it, you give it back, and your community can use it again. You have apps like Audio to Good to Go. I'm making free advertisements for them. Here you go, guys. Like where you can go and share your items you don't want anymore, or you can go and buy food that's about to be wasted in restaurants for pennies on the pound. There are so many solutions, and I think it's such a big harmful misconception that consuming more sustainably has to cost more money. In fact, most of the time it is costing you much, much less. But again, we are tricked into believing that we have to have something new. You have to have the new iPhone, Greg. If you don't have it, come on. Like, it's all about status. It's all about belonging to this group where you go and
I don't think it is all about that. I think for some people it is, of course. Yeah. But I think the other side of it is, what else is a very valuable commodity that people have very little of? Time. And like you've just rightly pointed out, there are a lot of options. And of course there are, right? Like I, for example, I'm an avid eBay seller when I have the time, because I don't believe in throwing things away. I buy, I am guilty of maybe buying some stuff that I don't need quite a lot sometimes. And then, but I don't believe in just throwing it away. It can go to a better home. Put it on Facebook Marketplace, sell it. And we also try and buy a lot of stuff off of these places and platforms too, especially as we have kids. When you have kids, you tend to go through stuff very quickly, and you're not going to use it forever, so you just buy it, cheap. And Facebook Marketplace is a really good example of that. And there are other platforms dedicated to that. I've even spoken to some of the founders and had them on this platform specifically for that, and I love that. But here's the problem: there's too much choice. And people don't have time. Like the average everyday individual who isn't, privileged enough to be able to just have one job Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and has, maybe working multiple jobs, maybe weekends and evenings, has kids, maybe they're single parent, things like that. The rent's just gone up, the gas bill's just gone up, like they're barely making ends meet. Okay, maybe it's not that much more expensive to buy these things. And in fact, in a lot of the cases you said, I agree. Go to the thrift stores, buy things for much cheaper than you would. You can definitely find even cheaper things. But the problem is time. These people are barely making it to the supermarket to do their monthly or weekly shop. They're trying to, as their best as they can, to manage their money, and that's the time they have to get all the things they need for them and their family. They haven't got time to go to the thrift store, the charity shop, to go online, check out these different apps, to see what these different options are. They need those options to be in the supermarket, right? Like people bash on supermarkets all the time. I think if it wasn't for supermarkets, a lot of families wouldn't survive. Let's be very clear about that. We need to be bringing these options to people in a way that makes it easier. And which is why I like your platform, because you're solving that problem to a degree. You are bringing it to them, the choice is there. But that to me is the bigger problem. And when I say it's not affordable, I think what's important to point out is both monetarily, but also time-wise. That's a big factor. It's expensive, both in time and in money. Yeah. Maybe not as much in money as people believe, but to your point, which I actually agree with. But time is a big one, right?
Totally. Like this, I totally agree. And this is again like going back to what I was saying about Ganddee. This is one of the things that really made me kind of like consider the project, really, because I was like, hey, people like time. Like we have to really make it easy for individuals to shop their values in their local area. Like even myself, because like I'm a consumer like everyone else. I'm not producing what I consume, right? So I'm not growing my food. I'm living in a flat in London. I'm not growing my food. I'm not, filtering my water. I'm not manufacturing my clothes. So sometimes I'm in central London. I have a meeting with some people, and I'm like, I don't know this area. It's an area that's not really like I don't know very well. So I'm like, hey, I'd like to have a coffee. Like, what can I find? And this is the moments where you go on Google Maps, or I go, like I'm talking for myself, and I'm like, hey, coffee around me, real quick. I have 5 minutes. Like, clearly, I don't have time to start doing 20 requests. Is this certified? What is the supply chain? No. Just give me a coffee now. My meeting is in now 4 minutes. I've already spent 1 minute doing this. And so that was one of the main factors behind Ganddee. It's like, we want for these people who have no time, like they want a coffee in the next 5 minutes, where do they go instead of going to Google? Then they go to Ganddee, they do the same research, coffee around me. Oh, okay, 200 meters away from here. Perfect, I go there. They don't have to think. They know it's on Ganddee, so they can know that it's doing better than the average coffee shop. And if they want to spend another 1 or 2 minutes, then they can click on the Ganddee record. This is how we name it, where we aggregate all the data, and they can do their kind of like, they can scan what we have. But that was really the main factor. I totally agree. Time is the enemy in many circumstances because it boils down to convenience. If something is not convenient, we don't do it. We are beasts of convenience. And everyone
and it creates that paralyzing effect that you talked about at the beginning, about when you were speaking with people, even before you come up with the idea of the product. It creates that paralyzing effect because it makes you feel guilty for not doing all these things.
Exactly.
Right? Because it's like, well, I should be, the internet tells me I should be growing my own food, I should be fixing my own clothes, I should be, fixing my own tech, or I should be reselling stuff, I should be giving stuff away, I should be I should be vegan, I should be, all of this stuff. And it's just like, all it does is it makes you feel like shit.
Exactly.
And it makes you feel guilty, and also paralyzed in like, I don't have the time to do these things. And to your point of when you ask these people, yes, I'm conscious about this thing, but I just don't know where to fucking start.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly. And I find it like, look, I find it upsetting to get like people to be lectured on a daily basis. Like, we all have our lives, we all have things to do. Like, give me a break. Honestly, give me a bloody break. And so that's, again, like sticking to the product, like just sticking to Ganddee, like really our priority was do not lecture people. Like, again, like there's too much doom and gloom out there. Too many people telling you exactly how you should be living your life. Give me a break.
We don't need another preacher in the world.
Exactly. Like, come on, I'm no one. I'm not going to tell you, Greg, you have to buy this. Like, what I can do, though, is I try to give you agency and empower you with extra data. But you own your life. You do your own decisions. And I think this is really what, like, the value we're bringing here, which is we don't want to lecture you. We just want, if you really want to have, like, to put your money where it matters, then we're going to make it easy for you to do so. But then ball is in your camp. Because I totally agree. If you go online, then, you spent an hour online, and then you're just feeling like shit because you're like, hey, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, or this person has more money than me, blah, 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 blah. Like all this kind of social pressure, how you should be living your life, or I'm not waking at 5 a.m. and taking a cold shower, I'm not doing this, I'm not eating plants. Like, that's bad. Like, come on, live your life the way you want, but we're going to meet you where you are. And to me, this is the best way to bring the masses. Like, again, going back to what I was saying, it's all about like making demand change. Right? Making them change. And I don't believe in changing people's behavior. You have your behavior, you're Greg, I'm Antoine, we have different lives. That's fine. I'm not going to try to change you. I'm just going to try to make it frictionless for you to shop sustainably so that it becomes a no-brainer. You don't even have to think about that. It's so easy that you just kind of do it because, why not? It's just so easy. It's one click. And that's the best way to bring the masses. And if you have the masses, then we're talking because demand significantly shifts and then you can create something meaningful.
Yeah. Absolutely. And also, I think there's a lot to be said for other things too, like, reward and gamification, right? Two things that I think that a lot of people are realizing now in tech especially are really important for not only user acquisition, but user retention. And Waze is a really good example of the way that things have been designed, their platform has been designed. Maybe not so much in terms of the sort of reward version of things, but then like there's a company I work with as an advisor, for example, that's created a travel like gaming app, so it gamifies travel, which is an example of reward, give you something back for what you're doing. And like, I think we need more of that as well. Like, it's not enough just to assume that people are going to do something out of the kindness of their heart or because they want to make the right decision. You also need to give them a bit of additional value than just that, and that's what's missing, I think, with a lot of things these days. So it's good to see that you're and that community thing that you're adding in. I think that's where the key value is in that, because if you feel like you get what you get out of it is that you feel like you're participating, and that's a very valuable feeling these days, especially when community isn't as prevalent as maybe it used to be, say 50, 100 years ago, Yeah,
I totally agree with this. I think community is a very powerful thing that a lot of companies should be like looking into.
Yeah.
Community really, I mean, it's really hard. It's a heavy lift to put the community together. You have to bring value to people. People are not going to join the community because you ask them to do so. But I do believe that if you manage to successfully set up a community, it can pay off very, very, very well.
100%. It's like the number one thing I advise founders to do when it comes to a go-to-market strategy. I'd like to say, as a CEO or as a founder in the very early stages, you should be putting your community manager hat on. That's what you are in the beginning. First and foremost, when you're testing your MVP and you're in early alpha or beta or whatever, you're a community manager first and foremost. And then, to your team, you're a product manager. But like, essentially, that's what you are, sort of facing outwards to the general public. It's a very important, very important approach for sure.
Yeah, I guess it all depends. Yeah, I mean, every company, every market, every segment is different. But like for what we do, I do believe it's very important. It brings a ton of value. It makes the whole kind of product more sticky, and
it allows you to iterate, right?
Yeah, and I think it's also like the value it brings is kind of like, you can really get some network effect, because the more people you get into the Ganddee community, the better the data becomes, because people can report, as I said before, like irregularities. If they visit shops, they can suggest shops to be listed as well, because we don't claim to be mapping the world, right? I mean, we are not going to be like sending armies of people walking around taking. So we have like hundreds of locations in London, like around more than 500 now. So we have a pretty comprehensive kind of like set of shops that are being mapped in London. But obviously shops, we don't know every single street, every single back street, and so the community is also here to help us, and they help us to improve the product. The more people using it, the better the product becomes. The more utility we bring to people, then the more people come, because the bigger the utility, and it becomes like a snowball effect where you can really get like a network effect, and that's really, really powerful if you really successfully manage to put it together. I'm not gonna lie and say we've nailed it. We are very much into the weeds to make it happen. Because we're a very early stage, but that's a very big priority of ours, and our community is central. Like, we are listening to feedback we receive to community members. Like, they are the true people we want to delight. Like, they are like, we do this for the community, for our users, and this is really, we are trying to, like, Ganddee is in the business of delighting Ganddeezens, like our users, and making them like a whole part of building a product. So it's a
and I have no doubt you'll get there. I have no doubt about that, and I'm very excited about when the app launches. But I'm curious to know though what your thoughts are about the we touched on it briefly there about in the broader terms about your opinions on food. Right, you're a French man. I'm half French. I was raised by a French mother. I spent most of my childhood in the kitchen. I'm the cook here, right? I don't know. Do you cook at home? Are you the main chef at home?
I do.
Yeah, as I expected. Good man. So, what's your opinion on the state of food in this? Because we brushed over it a bit, because it is a bit of a broader thing, and it's a little bit more complex, right? But there are some huge issues there, aren't there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, first things first. Well, I'm not. This is not an area where I'm an expert in. Sorry, but I mean, what do I think about that? I'm just doing the quick disclaimer, because obviously I don't want any of this to be taken out of context.
No, but it's just, I'm just interested to know your thoughts.
Yeah. Right? No, for sure. I mean, it's a tricky thing. I think we've developed bad habits as individuals around the world, being used to having access to all sorts of food all year round. Which is a bit of a problem, right? Because I think you can live a totally normal life and healthy life, not eating like oranges in one part of the year and eating apples instead, etc. Like, I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with regards to this. Again, I'm not like a nutritionist or anything, but like, again, to the best of my knowledge, there's no problem with that. And that's an issue. Again, we develop bad habits of this, having access to everything we wanted at every time. Meat is a bit of an issue as well for various reasons, because like, especially red meat, it's very resource intensive. Like, a cow doesn't weigh the same weight as an adult. Like, it's much bigger. It requires to be fed a lot of grains or grass, whatever is being fed to the cow. It requires to drink a lot of water. It requires land. It poops, so it can pollute actually, like, bodies of waters nearby, if you have like a mass production of beef in like these crazy beef farms in the US. There's a lot of issues, and I think the main issue it's a bit of an unstructured answer, but I think it all boils down to like whether or not you're doing mass production or not. Because that's always the issue. Like one could argue that meat is totally fine if you have one cow in a big field eating grass, and at the end of the life of the cow, you just kill it, you eat it. I think it's totally fine. I think humans have done that for a lot of time already. And there's nothing that seems fundamentally wrong with regards to that. The problem is we are 8 billion on this planet. And if we all want to eat a steak at every meal, then we can't have one cow in a big field eating grass and being killed after like 5 years, right? The thing is going to grow in a bloody plant. It's never going to see like the sunlight. They're going to be living on top of each other. They're going to shit in the same place. It's going to pollute all the bodies of riders around. They're going to be given like antibiotics to grow faster. That's the problem. That's always the problem. It's like the overconsumption, overproduction of these things. And I think that's the problem in many industries. We can talk about the fashion industry, etc., but also in the food industry. Because at the end of the day, again, if you have one cow, this is what I frequently hear from people. Oh yeah, like vegan people are, vegan food is not that sustainable because you eat soy that's grown in Brazil and imported, etc. Nothing is perfect. Again, as we said, even at the beginning, even your paper bag may not be sustainable depending on how you use it. The problem is that we are used to overconsume everything. And so, again, as we have people in the developed world that are striving to live like people in the UK, like people in the US, like eating more meat and access to all the services and goods we have access to nowadays in the Western world, then we have a problem. What do we do? Like we already know that I don't know how many planets we would need if we were all Americans, something like maybe 6 or something like that. You have like these crazy statistics. Like what do we do when all Indians and all Chinese are living like Americans? So this is to me the big issue is meat is fine if you have one cow in a field, but it's not the reality. And
so is soy, right? Like you rightly pointed out, there is an equal problem there that people aren't in any way talking about near as much, which is that it's a problem of scale. It's not a problem of the product. You're absolutely right. Like as soon as you start cutting down forests to put in soy plantations, the problems are exactly the same.
Well, yes, I would say yes and no. It's a problem of scale, I agree. But there's also a matter of understanding what the soy or the grain or whatever you're growing is used for. Because like in many areas, in many places around the world, like forest is being burnt to plant, for instance, soy. Let's stick to that, like in Brazil, for instance. And you have to understand, is this soy going to be feeding vegans in the UK, or is it going to be feeding like meat in Brazil, in the US, or in Argentina? And when you actually realize what like the meat industry requires as an input to function, you realize that a lot of land is being destroyed to feed the bloody cows and the bloody cattle to actually like produce the meat. Because again, the cow doesn't grow like breathing air, it has to eat. And what does it eat? It eats things that you have to grow. So it's a problem of scale. And not all things are equal. Nothing is going to be a silver bullet. Nothing is going to be perfect.
Nothing has its hands clean, like we said.
That's a fact. We hear so many times people saying that almonds are consuming a lot of water in California, etc. Yes, I'm not trying to fight this fact. It's a fact. However, you have to understand all things equal. Let's stop the whataboutism for a minute and just let's consider the scales of things. Sure, almonds are taking water in California, but so does like the soy that is being produced on dead Amazon to feed the beef industry, right? So nothing's perfect. What do we prioritize? We have limited planetary resources. Where do we put our money and energy? And that's really what we should be considering instead of like talking whataboutism and being like, oh, let me eat my steak every meal because you eat 2 almonds every morning and almonds are taking water. That's not a constructive debate. And so
it's like you said, people are interested in the extremes, not in the nuance, not in the gray area. And the fact is, in life, everything fits into the gray area. Nothing is that simple. And this is the huge problem with discourse these days, which is why I like having these conversations, because we can get into the gray areas, right? Which we don't hear about enough. And which is why also I like to have 2-hour-long conversations or, longer, because if you can't really get into detail in just, short bursts of conversation or, things like that. Like you need to explore these things in more detail. And you're absolutely right. There's so much more to it. And instead of looking at it from trying to spend all the time and energy on fighting each other over these issues. We should just be going, yeah, okay, there's issues on both sides. Let's find a better way of doing it together. And a great example of that is, you're seeing more and more dairy farmers and meat producers and stuff looking at ways of creating circular farming and sustainable farming solutions, whereby not only are they looking at sustainable energy sources for production and to maintain the abattoirs and things like that, but they're also looking at sort of ways of creating miniature ecosystems around their entire production. So they've got crops that can feed the animals. They've got the animals that can fertilize the soil. They've got, all of it. They're using all the waste. Nothing's going to waste, and everything's creating this harmonious system. And that's, I think, easily by far one of the best. I don't fully understand it, but I've read some about it and I've seen some stuff about it. And for me, that's one of the better solutions I've seen. Is it perfect? No. But, in terms of what it does for the environment and what it produces, like a far higher output of product, for far less, negative impacts on the environment around them. Like that seems to me to be a really good middle ground, because that's what we're looking for, right? Exactly. Middle ground with all of this, not just food, all of it, middle ground, because we're not going to please everyone.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, first, there's no such thing as a perfect solution.
Yeah.
And to your first point, like I have like two points to add to what you said. Like, I totally agree. I think a lot of people like to talk past each other because, again, like, you have to have one side. Nowadays, you have to be on a side. If you're not taking a side, like, you're pussy. Like, what the fuck? You don't have an opinion. No,
right.
I have an opinion, but hey, I'm seeking truth. I'm not seeking to get likes and retweets on Twitter, right?
And your opinion can change.
Exactly. Your opinion change. You have like data coming in, like, and that's the issue. And I think when we talk about sustainability and climate, I think this is like one of the most polarizing topic nowadays. Like people are wild on this. Like some people completely deny climate change. Some people are firm believers into it, and it's really like common clash on social medias, etc.
Yeah.
I think
it's one of the four, isn't it? It's climate change, abortion, race, and gender.
Probably. I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I'm trying to stay away from social medias when I have a chance, because it's a bit of a
good idea. Yeah, good idea.
But yeah, I mean, it's a big thing, and I think sometimes it's useful to take a step back. So, like, instead of talking about climate change, let's talk about other things then with the people who are, for instance, not believing into it. We can talk about air pollution. We can talk about like the health consequences of breathing shit air in big cities like London. We can talk about these things. We all have health. We all have maybe family members or relatives that unfortunately got sick because of XYZ reasons, partly due to like breathing polluted air, smoking, working in like a mine or something like that. So that's kind of evidence that maybe there's another way of doing things. Like maybe what we do is not, it's not only making our climate worse, but even putting the climate aside, maybe it's actually not good for us as well. So there's a lot of, we can talk about money. We talked about it in terms of like sustainable consumption can be more friendly to your wallets, if you buy secondhand, etc. We can talk about the health. We can talk about all these different things. We can talk about inequalities as well. And so sometimes I like to take different angles when I feel like there's some pushback against the climate thesis, when I feel like this is not the right way of pursuing the discussion because people like simply don't believe into it. You're like, okay, fair enough. Let's put climate aside. Like, are you fine like having a run in London and being like breathing and coming back breathing like a dog because it's all polluted? Are you fine even going on holidays and having like a freaking like sea of plastic bottles next to you? Like, we now everyone knows this. Like, you can go to the Maldives and everywhere. Like, you will see shit all over the place, right? Like, are you happy to pay like $2,000 or even more to go like to a paradise on Earth and like have like dead corals everywhere and like have plastic bottles everywhere? So let's put climate change aside, but that sucks, right? Like the plastic bottles next to your towel on the beach. Okay, well, now let's talk about that, and let's take this angle to talk, like have a debate, a constructive debate, instead of talking past each other. So that's one thing I like to do, because I think like a lot of focus is on climate change, but we can also take a step back and be like, hold on a minute, let's look at the broader picture. Like, there are many things that you care about in this discussion, and I just need to identify what it is. So that's one thing on the talking past each other. And the second point is, when you talk about these kind of like type of farms, regenerative farms, etc., I mean, I love to see examples like that. I think it's great, and the beauty of that is when you look at this, there's no like technological magic into this. It's just using practices that have been used for like centuries by our ancestors. Like you're taking inspiration from nature, like doing some stuff related to biomimicry, which is mimicking nature to do like,
I think they're using some new tech to help out with it, to like optimize certain aspects of it. Like, there's some pretty smart farm tech now that like, regulates climate, ensures that they're not overwatering, using water from local sources, like, and of course, energy regulation and all this kind of stuff. So I think there's some smart tech elements to it, but you're right. It is based on some principles that have been around for centuries. It's just elevated to the next level to make sure it's profitable and that they can still pay themselves a good wage, because that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. You've still got to make money,
Exactly. I mean, I'm not saying like tech has no place to play. In fact, I'm working on a tech company, right? But I guess my point is more that I think there's, again, in these debates around sustainability and climate change, there's an over-reliance on some like technological breakthrough that's going to come and save us all, like AI, blockchain sucking carbon out of the air, or like crazy stuff like that. I don't really believe into this.
See, I kind of do, but maybe not in the sense that there's going to be one big breakthrough. I think what it is it's going to be lots of breakthroughs with people like you, right? Founders like you, who I meet every day. And again, like I said right at the beginning, that's what gets me going. That's what gets me out of bed every day. And that's why I love doing this and doing what I do for a living, is speaking to innovative people who want to solve a problem. The person who I spoke to just before I met you, solving a really important problem in our society. And that's what founders do. We solve problems that they're passionate about. And so I do believe that the solution is in the power of founders, actually, and it's in the power of innovators. But it's not going to be one big solution. It's not going to be Elon Musk is going to unveil this thing and it's like, this is going to solve all our problems, because there are so many little problems. To your point, to your first point about how, we need to have conversations about, all of these subjects related to the bigger picture. And if all these, companies are coming in to solve them, that's going to put pressure on the bigger companies to make change. Like a great example of that is like what you just said about air pollutants, for example. Let's say a founder decides to create a very affordable, easily productible air filter that can be put in public spaces to filter the air. His selling point, well, he goes to local governments and he says, if we install this, we have proved that we can reduce the rate of this X, Y, and Z health-related issue, which will save your local authority X amount of money, freeing up budget for other things. It has to work and affect the bottom line. It has to work to money. It has to work to power. It has to work these things. So if you can get someone smart and get someone who can make the connections and who can go out there and do a good job of selling it, right, and be a good salesperson and all that kind of stuff, and be something of a politician maybe, when it's needed to be, then we can solve these problems. And then suddenly you'll see air filters in the streets. People will be breathing clean air. And you know what I mean? That's one of like many things. Like I spoke a few months back, I think at the beginning of the year, with the co-founders of a company called Yumbug, who are going quite viral now online about their solutions for introducing insect proteins to the general public by putting them into forms that are easily, you can wrap your head around. They're easily digestible and all that kind of stuff, like visually appealing and everything like that. And they're doing amazingly well. That's another example. But the point is they've recognized how to package it, how to sell it, how to bring it to people. I think that's the key. You can't just have the idea. You need to know how to make it palatable for people, in their sense, literally. But it's going to take thousands of people like you and them to solve the problem overall. So it's a patchwork, you know. And over time, it will come together, right? I believe that it will come together overall.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in it too. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think we agree more than we disagree here. My point originally was that I don't believe in a one big bang solution that's going to be dropped and like.
That's what I thought you meant.
Close your eyes. Like, this is done. We're going to suck all the carbon of the air. Continue to live your life as you used to do, and that's it. I don't believe in this, and I firmly it's a pretty firm belief. Of course, as you say, we can all change our opinions, and I'm totally open to change mine. But like, I firmly don't believe in this nowadays. However, I totally agree with what you said. Like, I think technology is a means to an end. It's not the end in itself. And so technology is beautiful to optimize processes. So to your point, like understanding how many drops of water you have to feed a plant to grow like optimally, like optimizing processes is beautiful. Like technology has an amazing role to play there, collecting more data, that's great. But it's a means to an end. It's not the end in itself. And that's really my point here. And I think sometimes there's a lot of misconceptions with things like direct air capture and all these kind of like big bang kind of like buzzy words. Well, first, when you follow the money and you realize who invests in which projects, you're like, interesting. There are some fossil fuels not too far. And second of all, I mean, again, like the plant needs to be built. It's made out of steel. Steel is coal. It needs energy to heat the air and extract the carbon out of it. Where does the energy come from? People will say, oh, it's a factory in Iceland. We're using geothermal energy. Great, this bloody energy could be used somewhere else, be sent to another country. I don't know. We could invest in like the electricity grid for Iceland to send more energy to Europe, so it's clean and we can power the hospitals with it. Like there's a lot of like technological I think a bit misconceptions maybe by people who don't fully get either the technology space, or by people who have vested interests to simply push this narrative.
But also change takes time, right? Yeah. So like look at solar panels, for example. 10 years ago, extraordinarily expensive, hardly anyone had them. Now anyone can pretty much get them, because of the way that it works with the grid. I actually had a quote not too long ago. The way that it works with the grid now is you pay instead of paying for the whole thing in one go, you pay for it monthly, and it costs about the same as what you would have been spending on your electricity bill. So in actual fact, anyone can get it. You pay it over the period of 10, 18 years, whatever. And because you're not spending any money on electricity, you're effectively now spending it on this. And it actually generally works out. You probably end up going to be spending much less than you would have been spending. Plus, you can also be sending, you quite often you're sending energy to the grid. So it's this idea that over time, when things become more cheaper to manufacture or become more publicly accepted, that more people adopt them, then they become the norm. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's about trying to get habits to become the norm. And there's a lot of them, right? And so it's going to take a lot of innovation and then a lot of time for things to slowly sort of start becoming part of the norm. And like to your point about like, say, the manufacturer of this particular thing, well, yeah, but that needs to be like all of those infrastructural elements around the manufacturing or even building a factory, they need to catch up too. So there's innovation around innovation around innovation that all needs to catch up. But I'm an optimist. I think it will. I think I think you do too, by the sounds of it, and it will catch up, but it will just take time. We're still a very young species, really. We've done a lot, but we're pretty young, and there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of iteration and trial and error, and we're still going through a lot of trial and error. But I'm pretty optimistic. Give us another couple hundred years, and I think we'll be well on our way to solving quite a few of these problems. I really do believe that. And especially with the things like, I'm not a believer in the doom and gloom about AI. I think actually there's a huge opportunity there to help us with the optimization side of things that you were touching on there, as an example, because there's a lot of inefficiency in the way that we do things. So to have oversight a little bit from that, or assistance from something a little bit smarter than us, may not be a bad thing.
Yeah. I mean, totally. Again, I have very nuanced opinions about these things, but I'm totally an optimist. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't be doing what I do, right?
Exactly. I don't think you can be a pessimist and a founder as well. I don't think those things go hand in hand at all.
Exactly. So pessimists probably don't bother starting. Because, No, but I'm totally an optimist. I totally think we'll get there. My point is more that, again, it's all about having a nuanced and a critical view about things and understanding that technology is a tool. You have different type of technologies that can be good in some contexts, very bad in other contexts. It's a means to an end. It's great for optimizing. AI can be great for navigating very large data sets, for helping us making more informed decision. Totally, absolutely. But it doesn't mean it's great for every use case. It doesn't mean we need to close our eyes. And we always have to be careful, in my view, whenever we use tech, etc. And to understand what problem it solves and what problem it creates. To really understand whether there's a net positive or not. Because sometimes the tech can actually create an equally hard problem to solve, but then you're like, oh, we solved this, whatever. I don't really have like, I don't know, like AI.
Well, I mean, the Oppenheimer situation is a pretty good example of that, right?
Yeah,
And AI is another Oppenheimer situation to that extent. People are
exactly.
concerned about, okay, we've created this thing, but it could destroy the world. So it's like pretty high stakes, right? But
Well, yeah, I mean, it can be like, I don't know, just
it could be more nuanced than that.
yeah, exactly. Just making up an example, which is not very relevant, but like, yeah, I mean, well, just coming up like with this, but like AI could be, I don't know, we are using a model to solve like XYZ problem, I don't know, to help the company ABC to better streamline their hiring process by better reviewing resumes. So problem solved, that's great. You address the pain point of your customers, that's great. What problem do you create out of that? Well, maybe now you have like some sort of an ethical selection bias problem where you really need to have a way to audit the model, making sure there's no discriminatory decisions being made, etc. So this is the type of things I'm saying. Like, of course, you have to make decisions. You have to move, because otherwise you're always stuck balancing the pros and cons and you don't make any progress. I'm not suggesting that. What I'm just saying is that I think it's worth, whenever we use technology, it can be for, we talked about AI, it can be direct air capture, it can be other things, to try to take a step back and be like, okay, what's the positive potential? What's the bad potential? Shall we pursue this direction as a society? Yes or no? To try to really minimize, like, Oppenheimer is a great example. You know, we have okay, great. We have like, we can stop World War II. We have this weapon of mass destruction. That's great. Now, what happens after that? Like, we will have like proliferation of nuclear weapons all over the world. What's the world going to look like? Is nuclear dissuasion going to bring peace in the long term, or is it going to destabilize the world in the long term? Like, of course, these things change. You can never predict the future. My point is more in an invitation to try to be more to have a more critical view about things and really try to explore the gray area. So I always go back to this gray area, because I think this is where the debate really happens. When you're on extreme, there's no debate, you're just shouting at each other. And it's a matter of trying to figure out, you know, like, what's the best thing moving forward, taking better decisions, literally.
And are you putting some fail safes in place, maybe, because if you're cognizant, like you said, about the negative effects of something that you're bringing to the world, then maybe you can mitigate those negative effects somewhat, right? And that's a big debate in AI right now. Like you said, for the ethical reasons, there's the bias problem, and also the thing, you know, to do with mass unemployment. Issues with copyright, like all of this kind of stuff. There's a huge like problems there, and the big, I think, criticism that it's getting is that no one was thinking about that when they did it. They just did it and they didn't think about it. We don't know. I think that's a huge assumption to make. There may have been people involved that were very cognizant of that and very aware, but they just realized, similar to the Oppenheimer situation, if we don't do it, someone else will. So we are aware of it. We can do some stuff about it, but ultimately a lot of stuff's out of our control. But I think you're right. You need to be aware of it going in, though. And ideally put some things in place to prevent a huge negative impact. But there's only so much you can do. I mean, at the end of the day, something has to be, if something's going to be disruptive, it's going to be disruptive.
Definitely.
as well.
I agree with this. Like, you have to take a decision and move forward. Otherwise, you don't do anything, right? I mean, totally. And you cannot predict every single outcome in the future. Even you cannot predict adoption of a specific technology. Like, when cars were first invented, maybe they weren't like planning for every person to have like 4 cars, or like rich people to have like collections of like 30 cars, right? I mean, obviously not everyone has 4 cars, but you see what I mean. Like, they were probably not planning for people to start building collections of them, etc. So totally,
just look at the road. That's a great example. Just look at the roads, right? Just look at the roads and the way the way towns and cities have been built and the infrastructure has been built. They were never built with the idea that every single person would own at least 1 car.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, right? And that's a great example of how, you can't predict these kinds of things. You know more than anyone as a SaaS founder that you can never predict how your users will use the product that you make. And they will usually use it in ways that you absolutely didn't even think of.
Exactly.
And sometimes that can be like, I had a guest on recently, or a pair of guests on, 2 co-founders, where they created a product. They put it out to market thinking it would be for one market. Turned out an entirely different market wanted to use it. And they were like, oh, shit. And they ended up getting like 100,000 users from this entirely different market. And they were like, oh, we need to change our entire business. So you just don't know,
True.
And that's what's beautiful about the world. It's unpredictable.
Yeah. No, totally. I guess my point, but that's an ideal. Like it's an ideal that is not gonna be possible because it assumes equal level of education across the board, which is
Right.
not the case. And that's also the beauty of our world is that like some people know things you don't, etc. So there's no uniform. Like I just have a bias because I've been in tech pretty much all my life, but like sometimes when I see what's going on in tech, I'm like, I wish more people knew about it so that we
Yeah,
could have more societal discussion. Like it
I
could be,
agree.
we are all citizens of this world, right? So, and tech is changing our world in an unprecedented manner. Social networks have changed. They have like modified the way we do elections. They have like influenced a huge part of our lives, literally, right? And so I wish more people knew about how the tech world was working because then we could have more educated decisions about these things. But it's just my own bias talking here, and I
No,
don't.
but I agree with you, and
But
maybe
I'm
I'm
aware of my
biased too.
biases. I'm
Yeah,
aware
yeah,
of my
exactly.
biases, right? And I'm glad not everyone knows about it because they know about all the fields that I have no clue about. They can come and repair the pipes in my flat when I have a leak because I know nothing about plumbing and they do. So it's also the beauty of this world. It's just as a tech guy, I'm like sometimes I look at the tech industry with a very critical view, and I'm like, I wish we had more open discussions about what's going on there because
Yeah.
it's only a selected few that really make like decide the weather in this industry, and this industry kind of like impacts everyone around the world. But
Yeah, no, and you know what? I'm a big supporter of what you've just said there, and also for another reason, aside from just the conversation piece, actually from a talent perspective too, because we need more a diversity of thinking in the tech industry, and I would like to see a lot more people get into STEM fields and tech that would never have otherwise considered it or never thought it was possible for them because of their backgrounds, socio-economical and whatever. And that I think that's a huge problem too, that there is a certain elitism to some degree with what we're doing. It's a lot less than say politics, let's say, but it's still there to a point. And which I think is nuts because of as a lot of founders have proven that I've met, you can be from any background and start a company. You can be from any background and be passionate about solving a problem and do it and found a company and just go. And I think I wish more people knew that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, not enough people know that who have, who are really passionate and know and have unique lived experience of something that lots of us don't. You know what I mean? But
totally.
yeah.
It's amazing. Like as you spoke, I had one example that came to my mind, which is a very good illustration of what you said. Like in my former jobs, I was a head of research in a fintech, and so I worked with this. I think he was a physicist. I think he worked on particle physics, if my memory is correct. I mean, he worked on something like it was super niche. He worked in this field for like 20 years. He had a PhD. He worked in academia in this field for ages. And so what we're doing, we were doing a lot of cryptography research. So like securing data and like encryption mechanisms, etc. And that was really interesting to see that. I mean, his math background was obviously very, very good in light of his experience in physics. And sometimes we're talking about lots of things. So I'm coming from the CS angle, the computer science angle. And sometimes he was like, oh, this formula reminds me of like the relationship between atoms in this thing. Like, and it was really interesting because he was drawing connections back in his field of predilection, which was like, I think particle physics, if my memory is correct. And that was really interesting. And sometimes even when we were doing like we were doing research pretty much on a daily basis. And so on some specific research topics, we were trying to fix a problem. And he was like, yeah, okay, maybe I remember. Like, he was really drawing connections to the worlds of physics. And I found it very interesting to get an extra source of inspiration. I was coming from the CS angle, and it was coming from his angle. And that's so nice because whenever you do research, in particular in research, like, you're facing, like, you're here, like at a given point in time, you are standing in one location, and you have like a whole tree of possibilities in front of you, which is almost infinite. So you're trying to search for a solution within this tree, trying different branches, different avenues. You backtrack, you say, no, it didn't work, and you try. And having more people with different background, expertise, opinions, cultures, anything, like just a diverse team, allows you to like broaden your scope of research, eventually land on the golden solution, the one we're searching for, and you're like, here we go. Because it's all about, it's all about looking for, it's a gold rush. It's you're looking for the solution and you don't know where it is, so you try. And if you all look alike, then you try the same things pretty much, right? So I find it beautiful to have people coming from different fields, and collaborate with these people, because they will do analogies you never thought about. You'll be like, oh wow, interesting. Okay, well, let's do this. So yeah. Anyway,
and you know what? Like, to tie this back into another point you made earlier about the nuance and the gray area and things. This is another topic that comes up a lot about, you know, workplaces and teams. Is about diversity, and again, people take it to the extreme, and it's like, it doesn't mean you need to have a team which consists of someone that represents every different race in the world. It's about neurodiversity. It's about experience diversity. It's about educational diversity. It's about that. And like, you know, that's a really good example of the devil's in the details there, you know, because you do find innovation comes from when you have a group of people in the room that can bring a lot more to the table than just, you know, where they're from. It's about where they've been. Like, that's it's not where you've been born or who your genetics. Like, that's got a very small part to play in the makeup of who you are. It's part of you, but it's a very small part of it. It's about where you've been, what you've done, what you've read, what you've seen, what you've said. You know, those kinds of things are what makes a group of people diverse, at least in my opinion. I don't know. But that's where, again, I think the nuance is missed in these conversations. You know?
I agree. Like, diversity is I mean, you just mentioned a few axes to look diversity from, like a few angles to look at diversity, but there are like so many.
Yeah,
exactly. Agree. Diversity is
but that's all people see, race and gender, and it's like, dude, there's more to it than that.
there is a lot. There is a lot. Totally. I mean, I can totally understand like the look at race and gender in specific industries where like specific groups are underrepresented. So all things equal, as a founder, you may want to make a statement and say, well, this is my contribution to solving this asymmetry in this space. You know, like if you see that, you know, Black women, for instance, are totally underrepresented in the tech world, and all things equal across two equal profiles on the skill set basis, etc. You may want to make a, you know, to make your point and be like, no, like I want to change this industry at my scale, and I'm gonna be hiring this person. So I understand that, but to your point, diversity is so big. You have to really look at this from a very different angle. You can be two white dudes with two completely different backgrounds, two completely different skill sets, grew in different countries and stuff, that are going to work really well together. So yeah, I think, again, as you say, nothing to add on what you said. It's a matter of understanding the subtleties of the discussion here. And
yeah. Which is my main takeaway so far. We're in agreement there needs to be a lot more subtlety in communication. But again, the problem is, like, communication is seen as something, well, first of all, people are very combative immediately in communication quite often, right? So that means you can't have a conversation, because if you're coming into an interaction combative, then immediately the conversation, it hasn't even begun. It's over before it's even started. That's you can't have an open discourse with someone that's closed off and isn't prepared to have their opinions changed. But more importantly, people seem to not give discussion enough time.
A friendly reminder to share this episode with your network, subscribe for more, and join the conversation in the comments. It really helps us out. Thank you.
Right? Like, you know, you can't effectively share ideas and mold each other's perspectives and shift and it's a dance. You've got to, you know, you can't rush a dance. You know, a dance you should take time and explore each other's movements and see where it goes. You know, like, it's got to be a little bit, you know, I don't know where I'm going with this, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like,
and people don't give it time.
I mean, communication is a bi-directional thing, right? I mean, you communicate with someone, either another person or a group of people. So you have to be able to listen to communicate, because otherwise you talk to a wall. That's not a communication. That's just you talking to yourself in front of a wall. So if you communicate, you have to listen. And I feel like that's requiring effort for a lot of people. Like, just keep it shut. Listen, even if you disagree, take note. I don't know, just do something, but hear what the other person out has to say. Because if you don't listen, you don't give you a chance to be proven wrong, right? I mean, and for instance, I'm going to be talking about myself here as a founder. Communication, in my view, is the number one. Well, one of the top 2 or 3 skills you need to have. Well, you need to be resilient, because it's not a smooth ride, right? So if you expect to raise like 10 millions on day 1 and become a unicorn on month number 2, then maybe you should do something else. So you have to be resilient. You have to be communicative. You have to be able to be proven wrong. I think you need to put your ego back in your pocket or somewhere else and just throw it away. Accept to be proven wrong by even like an intern in your company. Like, who gives a shit? Like, if this person is right, just keep it shut and just say, well done. Like, acknowledge that this person has a point, and move forward. As a founder, you should be
and probably promote them as well.
I mean, like as a founder, you should be in search for the truth, and the truth can take different forms. It can be like, like what the market really wants. What is the next feature you should be prioritizing? Like it takes different forms, but you're in search for what's going to make your business succeed. And that's really like, it's not subjective. It's not like you can have an opinion and think, well, this is like the next feature, what we should be pushing. You're going to push it. No one's going to give a shit about that. People will be like, I don't care about this feature. I want this. So be wrong, accept it. And so that all boils down to communication. Like it's all about ego is the enemy. Throw it away. Have opinions, that's fine. But really try to listen to people. Be respectful as well. You can be proven wrong any step of the way. And also, if you're not like communicating is also accepting to be wrong. Maybe I said something on this call today that I'm going to regret in 2 months, and I'll be like, now I changed my mind. I regret it. Who cares? That's fine. I can change my opinion. And like communicating is also accepting to be wrong, and that's the best way. You have to be wrong 10 times or even 100 times to land on something promising. So even with your team, when you communicate and someone comes up with an idea that you may think very deep down that it's very bad, you can be like, come on, like it's really bad. Like of course you have to communicate it the proper way, because if you smash or like the people that trust you, that are the early joiners in your business, that are giving all their time to make the success a reality, and you actually like don't give them room to be wrong, then you're depriving yourself from a major source of inspiration. And going back to the exploration trees I was saying before, all these external challenging point of views that are going to broaden your scope of search within this tree to find what you're looking for, which is PMF or I don't know, like these groundbreaking research projects you'll be working on, etc. You're going to be encoding your bias into these people. Worse, literally shutting them down so that you only are the person that's going to be exploring. That's bad. So communication is key. You have to listen. You have to put the ego on the side, accept to be wrong, and give people room to be wrong. So as a team, you can really like strive to make your business a reality. So yeah, I think as a founder, that's really important to me, and even in life generally, it's really, really key. It can be in your love relationship, in everything. Like if things are not being talked about, you're on the way for something pretty bad to happen. You have to let it go. You have to be honest, and you can do so very respectfully. And in fact, doing it frequently is the best way to stay respectful, so that frustration doesn't stack up, doesn't accumulate. You can share things as things go. But if you don't communicate regularly, then frustration grows all the way. We are thinking beasts, so we keep thinking about that. Things become even bigger in our mind, and then bam, we get it out, and we generally like lose the right words, and
then we miscommunicate. Yeah,
exactly. It's really, really key in life.
Yeah.
And as a founder, even more.
Yeah, and I love the description you gave of yourself and founders in general as of being truth seekers. Like I think that's a really that's a really eloquent way of putting it. That you are and the truth, when you find it, sometimes isn't pleasant. And like you said, you have to check your ego there. You have to be self-aware. There has to be some amount of reflective practice there to make sure that when you do find it, that you're not going to be too hurt by it, either intellectually or emotionally or whatever, and just be resilient, like you said, and just move on. I love what you said there. I'm in agreement with it. But I'm curious. I would like to switch gears a little bit and ask a bit more about because we've gone on a bit of a rant there, which is fine. That's what we do. But I'm curious to know a bit more about where your company is now. So are you funded currently? Are you currently fundraising? Kind of what's going on there behind the scenes? What's going on with the team? Like, tell me a bit more about all the stuff that's going on like there behind the scenes.
Yeah, of course, and more than happy to talk about the team as well, because we haven't talked about them much. So so the company is called Bluteshi. And Ganddee is Bluteshi's first and unique product for now. So why two names? First, when I started the company, now I know things I didn't know back then. So maybe I should have just started the company with only one name. The name of the company is the name of the product. That would be probably easier and less confusing for people. It's still not too late, I would say, to rename things. But like the reason why we have like 20, Bluteshi as a different name as a product, is because I really have like this very big vision to when I started it, and I still do, like this really big vision of changing the way we consume globally, and consume with a big C, like consumption in every angle. And so that's really like the motive of Bluteshi is to be. Bluteshi, by the way, is a contraction of 3 words. It's Blue Terra Shield. So the goal of this is to be a tech company protecting our little blue planet. You know, I've been very inspired by this picture called the Pale Blue Dot, I think,
Right.
where you can. I think it was introduced by Carl Sagan, I think, or I don't remember. But like when you see like a satellite taking an image of planet Earth, like which appears tiny in the space, and it's just a reminder that sometimes we forget about it. We are busy living our lives, etc. But hey, we're just like people, whatever that is, like just animals or living beings, like walking on a rock that's just moving around the universe. Like we're nothing. And I like this analogy of being like, we are living on this tiny little blue rock. This is the only place we know. Let's protect it. Like let's
a bit of perspective.
Exactly. Let's protect it. And that was kind of like the inspiration behind Blue Terra Shield. Like, let's build a company.
It also sounds Japanese as well.
It does, exactly. And I actually checked when I came up with Bluteshi. I was like, okay, does that mean something bad in Japanese or in any language?
Yeah.
I think it doesn't. I hope it doesn't. So if anyone's
we'll find out.
You know, it's like just kidding, but yeah. So anyway, that's kind of like Bluteshi. And so the goal was like, you know, it was kind of like the vision was Bluteshi is like the alphabet of this world, of the sustainability, if you want, and Ganddee is one product, and then we'll have many others. So it was kind of me being like, now I know things I didn't know before, and it's kind of me being too maybe ambitious first and going in too many directions, coming with like this idea of, yeah, we're gonna have 10,000 products. I'm like, okay, now I know, like you get PMF for one product and then you're happy and then you scale. But anyway, that's how it is. Ganddee, the product, I'm doing the long story here. I'm gonna come to your question, obviously.
Yes.
The name of the product is inspired from Mahatma Gandhi. Be the change you want to see in the world, etc. I like the idea of the peaceful protest, and I've been inspired by a few aspects of his life. And I didn't want to borrow his name, like for instance Tesla did with Nikola Tesla and others. Like I didn't want to borrow his name. His name is his legacy, etc. I wanted something that sounded alike and spelled in a simple way with few letters. So Ganddee only has like GANDDEE. There's not many letters. It's quite sounding well, not too many syllables. So I was like, let's go for that. And yeah, so now back onto the team. So I started this alone. Bluteshi was incorporated in August last year. I've done I incorporated like as early as I knew I was going to start a company. Like I didn't wait to, like I was just like, okay, let's incorporate. So in fact, between August and end of the year, I was kind of like refining the idea, testing things around, etc. So it was more like planning more than building any product, I would say. I talked to investors very early on, which was again another mistake I probably did. In retrospect, it's not a very harmful mistake because it's always good to build relationship as early as possible. But like hoping to get funding like 1 month in starting a company in August 2022 when the macro environment was not great. Yeah, was extremely optimistic. So so I spent some time, you know, ideating the project, refining the value proposition, talking to investors, etc. And in beginning of this year, I realized most of what people cared about was this map, was this idea of shopping your values, shopping sustainable shops, finding sustainable shops in one click. And that's when we actually started to build the thing. So we launched the MVP at this moment. And so I was still alone, working on my own. I developed the MVP quickly, put it as a web app, etc. And then I was joined by my now co-founder, Ankit, who joined me originally as a part-time engineer, giving me some hand on the back end. We met each other on the Slack channel, where it was a community of, I don't remember which channel exactly, but it was a community of impact founders or something like that. And he was keen to put some of his time on the side. He had a full-time job, but he was keen to put some of his time on the side to worthy cause, so work in the climate tech. And so we matched. We started to work together. He was part-time. We clicked pretty well. Like our working dynamics was great. I was also joined by AB, who's working also part-time on some front-end tasks, etc. And so the team started to grow around March, I think, or April. We were 3, 4. And yeah, that's where we are. So we've been fully bootstrapping, very, very lean, literally like we burn very little cash every month. Like, like we are in the mode of, like, the current macro environment is not great. So we have to play the game of survival and survive as long as we can, so that we give ourselves as many chances to land PMF as possible. And also, now, like, I think it just makes more sense, right? Let's get our act together. Let's build a viable business. Let's build something people want. Let's delight our customers, our users. And then once we have that, we have a very strong hand to welcome external investors to pour fuel on a fire, as opposed to helping us start the fire. So now this is really what we do. We are very lean, burning very little cash. The team is a team of 4. We have like 2 part-time engineers. Ankit joined me as a co-founder and CTO. I am the CEO, so we are both co-founders full-time on that. And that's where we are. We are accelerated by ESADE in Barcelona, the business school. So they are giving us some hands. We've been part of the Better Future programs in the Greater London Authority. So we worked with Sustainable Ventures as part of this program as well. It was pretty good. Yeah, now we are going to be looking for fundraising. We are going to launch the mobile app very soon, as I said, in a matter of days. And then it's going to be switching back to fundraising mode and using the existing KPIs to actually demonstrate our signs of tractions and find investors that are sharing our mission.
Yeah, and hopefully, obviously, the release of the app, I assume there'll be, once you start getting back into investor mode, that takes a good month or 2 to get back in the flow of things. And so during that time, you should see a decent amount of growth in traction to present to your investors. But I'm curious, as right back at the early stages, you mentioned before about how you got a considerable amount of feedback that shaped your idea of what it was that you wanted to focus on, which was the idea of the map and all of this sort of stuff. How did you go about getting this information and interacting with people? Like, what platforms did you use? What did you do? Were you going out in the streets? Were you knocking on doors? What were you doing? How were you getting that market research, I suppose?
Yeah, totally. I tried. I've carried out a lot of experiments, and I still do, actually. So, well, first, when I was on my own, I was like, you know what? Like, I did a couple of days around London where I had my backpack. I had a couple of flyers, like with a QR code scanning to the web app, and I was knocking at doors. Literally, no shame. I was like, let's do this. Let's see how it goes. It can only be a learning experience. If people like slam the door in front of my face, so be it. I need to get better at pitching. That's the way. Like, honestly, no shame. I didn't matter. It doesn't matter for me. I talked to businesses as well that were, with the businesses listed on the map, visited the businesses that looked alike, being like, hey guys, we have this great map. I'm sure you'll be interested hearing what they had to say. Some of them like put off flyers and put it on their doors, like, wow, that's amazing. Let's put it on the door, like crazy. Sometimes they were almost like showing me the door, like, okay, just I don't know what you want. Like, I don't want to buy your thing. Just go out. I was like, there's nothing to buy. Like, just hear me out. But this is how things work, right?
Yeah.
So I did a bit of this. I think it's we are humans, so a bit of human interaction cannot hurt. A couple of online experiments as well with some very, very small advertising budgets. Like, we're just talking like 10, 20 pounds, just a couple of things, very, very targeted, like audiences, like defining the target persona, just figuring out like the areas of London where people were clicking the most, etc. Just like, again, gathering extra data at low cost, I would say. What else? Like, I've organized some referral challenges, gamifying the process, where we were saying like, hey, we have like the web app with maybe at the time we had like 200 shops listed or something like that. I don't remember how many we had at the time. And if you refer like every 10 referrals, so you could come register, like there was a form. You could say like, you can register to our newsletter, tell us a bit who you are, like so we understand a bit the demographics. And every time, and then at the end of the registration, you were given a code. And every time, like you were referring someone came referred by this code, you were given points. And so we organized a leaderboard so we could see who was the best referrer in the area. So it was just a matter of like building a little bit of a status game, right? So betting with each other. And every 10 referrals, then we unlocked 10 new locations on the map. So again, the goal was to make utility grow as the user base was growing, to make sure that, hey, you get something out of it. You don't get any monetary compensation, you don't get any giveaway like a cheap trip to Dubai or whatever. It's not aligning with what we do. However, you have an incentive to refer your people, because then you can get your name high on the leaderboard. That's kind of funny if you want to brag about it. And also, we list more shops. So if you want to find more places, then spread the word. So we did. I tried lots of different things. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few, but that's pretty much how it worked. I did a couple.
That's really cool. Sorry, really quickly, I've got to ask. Right? The last thing you just mentioned there. So is that something the solution that you built yourself? Was that a bespoke solution, or did you use a third-party tool to manage all of this sort of referral process?
No, I built it myself. Built it myself using existing tools, but I wrote a couple of scripts myself. It was a bit hackish under the hood. But that was not supposed to be seen by people. So no one knows exactly what was written, but no, it's something I've done myself using.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean, that was interesting. And so, yeah, I also did a couple of user interviews. So talking, for instance, to friends, being like, hey, don't be my friend. Tell me, like, honestly, please. And of course, I know friends and, your close relatives have a bias still, even if you tell them to act in a certain way. So then I try to connect with friends of my friends, so expanding a bit my social graph to talk to people I didn't know about. And so I ended up being on calls with people even outside of London, which is the primary city we're launching in, talking to people in Scotland, people in maybe like even in other parts of the UK, having calls with them, being like, hey, thanks for taking the time. So I'm a friend of this person who like just like quite far in the social graph, being like, do you mind if we answer a couple of questions? And because they came from someone who knew someone that would know me, then that kind of worked. And that's my question in a pretty honest way. And that was another way for me to gather data. So I just tried lots of different things, and everything I tried was an opportunity for me to get data. And I did it I kept a very open mind. I was like, no shame. If people on the call tell me your product is shit, I will never use it. Thank you so much for your time. I'm taking notes. I'm noting the profile. What is the profile of this person? Okay, this type of profile, then trying to cross the data together, being like, okay, well, maybe our target persona doesn't look like that. Maybe it looks like this, talking to people in the street, etc. So yeah.
Well, this is what I was going to ask as well. You preempted my next question, which is how were you logging this data? Like, is there a framework that we're using, some way you could explain this so that maybe others listening could take that away and kind of go, oh, I could replicate that?
Well, I mean, to be honest, there's I'm doing a lot of things that do not scale yet, right? So we don't have a crazy BI infrastructure where it's all like one dashboard and you get it. I've been using like basic things such as Google Forms, like very low tech. You can get everything in a spreadsheet, so it's quite easy. I've been using likewise, for instance, the user interviews I did. I also had like a form which I was filling as I was on the call with people, so it was all stored in CSV format. The registration process, likewise, some forms in the process here, so you could actually understand who's on your newsletter, who's not. For sending emails for the newsletter, for instance, then you can use things like MailChimp, which have a free deal. Use their competitors. I have no affiliation with them. I don't care. So to be honest, no, I just use like a lot of no-code tools as much as I could, and most of them, as far as I know, they have like some CSV exports. And then because I'm kind of like tech savvy, what I do is I take all my CSVs. Generally, I'm trying to be consistent with the titles of the entries in the form, so the CSV columns are pretty much named the same. And then I just have some Jupyter notebooks in Python where I'm aggregating everything, and I have my own dashboard. So I built my dashboard in Python. You do this if you know Python. You do this in like 2 hours. You spend this data frame. You import all your CSV in a data frame. You just render it. It's really easy. And I had like most of the data across all my different experiments aggregated in one source, and I could actually use this source to take decisions. So it's a bit of manual work, but why take a bazooka when you're getting started? There's no point. So I'd rather do things that don't scale to do things that scale later than trying to spend all my time, energy, and money trying to build some crazy stuff for a business that's not going to work. You never know. So you have to. That's what I did.
Yeah, and I suppose like for those that don't have the sort of experience and sort of skill set you have, like you said, you can use no-code solutions that are out there like Google Forms and Sheets and all that, and probably get a similar result. Maybe not quite the same aggregate, but you could definitely do do very similar things from a market research perspective. It's just about making sure you're asking the right questions, right?
Exactly. I mean, to be honest, today you have like so many tools. You just need to do a couple of research, but you even have like tools that allow you. So you may have to pay £20 a month or something like that. But again, you have to make your your time cost analysis here, because if you like your time, like 2 hours of your time is as a founder is probably going to be worth much more than £20. So you're probably better off like just saying, like just take my money, my £20 a month, and save me a lot of time. And you can use things like Hootsuite or competitors for aggregating your social media stuff as well. So you can have like statistics across your social channels. You don't have to do anything bespoke. There are like a lot of tools. And if you take like a couple of hours just to search the market and figure out which tool is the best one for your needs and for in terms of prices, you can pick one. You also have like a couple of like free trials on SEO tools that you can use to figure out what are your organic, what are your growth channels, how people are landing on your website. You can use the Google Search Console as well to understand how many clicks you get on the Google search. There are like so much around. But to be honest, I think it's your job as a founder to identify that, because every business is different. Every business has growth channels which are different. Like what we do is B2C. It's going to be very different maybe for a B2B business. They won't care much about the social channels because they will be like, I don't really care. We have like 1 or 2 sales in-house, and they have like their address book or something like this. It's going to be different for every business. You just need to understand which channels matter to you. These channels will change. These KPIs that you're tracking will change as well. I don't think you have to track every KPI. I don't think you have to track all the KPIs you hear on YouTube videos, like all this crazy stuff. You don't care. Just identify what the KPIs matter to you, what channels matter, and identify which tools give you access to this data in an easy way. Maybe give them $20 or $30 a month, and that's it. So
yeah, you're right. And it changes from stage to stage of the business, and as you get more information, it's going to dictate what you need to do next as well. So it's a constantly evolving thing. That's why I like what you said about when you incorporated the business to when you actually sort of started doing anything with the business. You spend a lot of time thinking and researching and taking your time, and that's good time. And I think people need to be a bit more patient in that regard of just taking their time to do a lot of this planning and research before they actually go ahead. It's like, well, do you have your ducks in a row? What do you have what you need in order to go out and execute it? But then there is also something to be said of just getting off your ass and doing it, right? So like you were saying about, I love the fact that you were knocking on doors and speaking and calling with people. Like, I tell people to do that all the time, that they're terrified to do it. But you've got to just go say, fuck it, I need to go and speak with people. That you have to, because you can have an idea, but unless you can speak to people and find out if your idea is any good, or if it can be improved or whatever, then there's no point. Like otherwise you can spend a huge amount of time and money building something no one wants. So first thing to do, if you're not sure, go and ask people. It's not that complicated. Just go and ask people. You want to sell, I don't know, to sandwich shops, this bespoke software solution, go to every fucking sandwich shop in a certain radius around you and ask them, would this be useful? Would you want this? What are the main problems that you have, et cetera, et cetera, And try not ask bias questions too. That's a big problem I see a lot of.
Agreed. And for instance, as a founder, I made this mistake. Now, again, like, I know things today that I didn't know before, and I will know things in 2 months that I didn't know today. So I totally agree. Like, but practice makes perfect. It's as you talk to people that you realize, I didn't ask the right question. I left the call. There's still this thing I don't know about. I need to polish my thing. And so that's the way it is. Like, again, no one can come and tell you can read like the mom test book and all these things. Great. Of course, like there's a lot of insights you can get from people who have done it before you, but every business is different. So you also have to try. Like, there's a balance to be struck between reading all the books in the world, reading every inspirational quote, watching every YouTube video. Yeah, you can do that. You can do this a fair bit because people have knowledge you don't, and so they can give you some head start. But you also have to get your hands dirty to figure out what your business is all about, to figure out whether you're solving people's problem. Of course, it's not going to completely de-risk the thing because you're going to be talking to a sample of people. Like, you're going to try to come up with a target persona. Maybe you can miss the shot, and
you still have to make some assumptions.
Exactly, you make some assumptions that you verify along the way, but you have to try it out. And to me, that's really important. Like, again, like when I remember in one particular shop, that was funny. The guy was talking about like Ganddee the guy was so confused. He was like, he didn't want to hear, he didn't want to talk to me. And so that was probably like the most like the best thing, because when people you pitch them and they click, they get the idea, you get nothing out of the discussion. I mean, you get that maybe you get a potential customer, you have an extra lead or something like that. That's great, but your pitch didn't improve. I remember one day I left the thing. I was so embarrassed. I was like, honestly, I thought the guy was going to call security on me, and I'm super respectful, but the guy was so confused, and he was kind of like busy with customers, and I just messed it up, right? I mean, and I don't think I did something fundamentally right, but it was not the right moment of the day to go and talk to the guy. The guy was confused. He didn't want to bother, and so I left the shop being so embarrassed, and I was like, okay, now I have something to learn from. Like now, like who cares? I was the only fucking guy in this store. No one knows me. Like, and I don't give a shit. You know. And then I actually went and I was trying to pull it to things. So at the end of the day, I have a lot of opinions about these things because I think sometimes it's very tempting to over delegate too soon. And being like, oh, I'm scared to do like the sailing, so I'm gonna hire a sale. Oh, I'm scared to do. Oh, I'm not good at doing social media communication, so I'm gonna hire someone to do this. Well, first you have to try to know whether you're good or not, right? Because maybe you're good at something. Maybe you're very good at social content creation, but you don't know it. Maybe you're gonna start putting a couple of posts together. You're gonna have crazy engagement. Everyone's gonna reason about it. So try it to see whether you're genuinely bad at it or not. Like, again, it doesn't matter what you think. It matters you're building something for users to use. So what do your users think? It doesn't care what you think. Like next week or in 2 weeks, you can install Ganddee and tell me, Antoine, I think this feature is shit. Well, great. Tell me what you want. I'm going to do what you want. You're my user. You're the king, right? I mean, I'm here to delight you. Like, without you, I don't have a business, right? I mean, I don't care to do something. Otherwise, it's a side project or, So, like, I don't know. You have to try to know what you're good at, and to define whether or not you're good at, you need to see what your users think, etc. That's one thing. So try it out. So don't delegate too quick. And also, delegating costs money, like in the early stages of a company. I mean, unless you get everyone to work for equity, which is possible as well. You have to sell the project properly. People work for equity. That's also a very good thing to do, in my view, because I like to get people in the team to get exposure to the success of what they create. So I think it's very good. But if you want people to work full-time or something like that, then they need to pay the bills, right? I mean, so like delegating can cost money and can also be quite bad, because not only if you're not good at something, or if you're not sure what you should be looking at, you cannot hold people accountable. You cannot know what a good sale is if you've never sold something in your life. There's always a balance. Again, I'm annoying because I always go back to this gray area, but of course you don't want to be in this extreme where you're like over-delegating on day one, because I think it's kind of toxic. It's your business. You're the founder. Like, get your shit together, understand your business ins and out, and then you delegate. And you don't want to never delegate, because otherwise you become the bottleneck of your own business, which is bad.
But it's about the timing of it. It's a time and a place. You've got, like you said, every business is different, and you will know when you're doing it, when it's the right time to do these things. Because you'll reach a bottleneck. You'll reach a point. Let's say you're going to start fundraising. You can no longer keep selling to your clients. You need to go and have time to delegate to that. And it's about just, I think there are some frameworks to these things that kind of give you a rough outline of when you should do these things and not. But like you said, very rightly so, it is in the details and it's in the gray area, because it's about the individual situation. I would add as well to your point about, you don't know if you're bad at something until you do it. It's also okay just to be okay at something, right? Because sometimes that's all you need. You don't need to be great at it. You just need it to be done. And that's okay. And it's the same with sales, and it's the same with marketing and all these things. You just need to have it done. It doesn't need to be done amazingly well. In fact, the chances are it will probably be quite shit to begin with. And that's okay. At least it's being done. And to your point, you will learn from it. You will get better at it. You won't be perfect at it, and that's okay. But at least it's being done. And the problem is, a lot of people I speak to, especially, they're just paralyzed by the fact that it needs to be done, and they don't know how to do it, that it never happens. And that's not useful for anyone. you know what I mean?
I absolutely agree with this.
Just get it done.
It needs to be perfect. In fact, few things are perfect, because even in your user base, some people will have opinions. They will say, oh, I'm confused by this aspect of your app or your whatever SaaS, B2B SaaS software, whatever. And some others will be like, no, it's working well. So again, like, that's okay. It's not perfect. Is it working well on average? Like, do I get what I need? Do I get my objectives filled? Like, that's exactly, couldn't agree more.
You need to apply a bit of common sense in the whole thing as well, right? A bit of common sense, a bit of, understanding the situation and all that. But yeah, I just realized the time. Fucking hell. How do we manage to get to the end already. That's nuts. So this always happens. It always just catches me off guard. Well, look, I usually like to end with a very brief, which we've kind of already done, a brief summary of like some tips that you would give, but we've already done that really in this, like we've just talked about it. So I'm going to ignore that as the normal ending. Instead, I wouldn't mind if you wouldn't mind indulging me really, really quickly. How does the business make money, or how does the business intend to make money? Because we haven't touched on that. What's the revenue opportunities for the business? And then I'll let you go.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm very pleased to share this as well. So we are building, like what we do is kind of a marketplace, right? We connect the demand side with the supply side. So the demand side is like people like you and I who want to shop more sustainably in one click, who don't want to do so hassle-free. And the supply side are like shops that try to grow their audience and market shares and just make their business grow and access the very audience we are building. So what we want to do is we don't want to add the frictions we are trying to remove for the consumer. If I'm asking you to pay for the app, like what's the point? Like most people will say, you know what? No, like I can I can shop for free or somewhere else. So the goal is mostly to monetize the marketplace on the business side of things, providing businesses with like premium packages for them to access detailed analytics about how they are doing on the platform, how they can better stand out on the platform, fully control their image on the platform, engage with their audience on the platform. So really giving them a way to fully control their image on the platform. And that's one thing to monetize. Again, I've talked to businesses about that. For now, we are not making anyone pay because there you have a bootstrap, aspect. And the goal really, again, I'm being fully transparent here, and things can change as we go. But the goal really is to offer a freemium package for businesses as well. Like I don't want the family-run business with 2 employees to be like bottleneck because they cannot pay, they cannot afford to be listed. First, we want to make the listing very the premium package to be very affordable on a monthly basis, so it shouldn't be a strain for any business. But also we want to make it free. You can get listed for free. But if you want to unlock some premium features, then we are a business. We have to make money, and we're going to bring utility to you to help you grow as a business. So we have to find a middle ground, and this middle ground is you paying some monthly subscription. So that's a very natural thing. I've talked to businesses about that. They're totally, I mean, the ones I talked to, they were like, well, I mean, of course, that makes sense. If I'm paying you £1 and you give me 120 in return, of course, guys, just take my money. Like
standard economics, yeah.
Exactly. So that makes total sense for them. That's something we are polishing. It's going to be a freemium regardless, because we really want to keep the door open for these small businesses that are trying to make to be as sustainable as they possibly can. So it's going to be a rich premium. And another thing that's monetizable is the data we have, because we have actually quite a lot of data about physical shops, the physical sustainable shops listed on Ganddee. And that's of interest to a couple of actors that are looking to access some of this data to take better local decisions. So we've already have a couple of people interested in our data. So our data set is an asset that we are building as we propose the product, and that's an asset that we aim to leverage in the future in the best possible way. So there are like different monetization avenue. There may be also like premium packages on the user side of things. Like very kind of like niche premium features that you can see on many social networks nowadays. Like where now you can pay on X, you can pay on Strava, for instance. If you want to be a premium user of Strava, you can pay on I think you can pay on Duolingo as well. You can pay as well. So now a lot of B2C come with like freemium on the user side of things, on the C aspect as well, where they give you access to like 80% of the platform for free. But if you want to unlock this sweet 20% that's really like giving you a ton of extra value, then you have to pay. So all of this, again, I'll be honest, is mostly to be refined and
of course, yeah,
as we go. For now, we are really building the marketplace, so both sides of the marketplace, growing the number, because our goal is, I think it also makes more sense on the business side of things, right? I'm being very transparent here. Like, why would I ask you as a business to pay me if I'm not providing you with like exponential utility, right? I mean, my rule is more give. And once you've given enough, then you're legitimate to ask. But don't go and ask, guys, like, pay us for what? Like, what the fuck? Like, you guys have like 3 users. Well, of course we have more, but you see what I mean. So
yeah, that's the marketplace like dilemma a lot of the time, is the chicken and egg scenario that you've got to face. Yeah.
Exactly. So like bring the eggs to get the chickens to some extent, right? I mean, like bring demand to get the supply, or bring the supply to get the demand, whatever side you choose to build first. But really, our goal now is focusing on utility, really solving people's pain point, empowering both sides of the marketplace, giving sustainable businesses a bigger access, like easier access to the audience they're trying to get access to, helping them strive as businesses, and helping people that are trying to shop more sustainably do so in a hassle-free way. And then once we've done that, I think we would have proven our point and will be legitimate to work with the supply and demand side of the marketplace to figure out what's the best way of monetizing. What exactly do they need? Like, how can we bring even more values to them? And would this value be worth like £5 a month? Would it be like £10 a month? And then we can actually go into like pricing aspect as well. For now, it's pretty much like building the marketplace. So I'm being very honest, but that's really the monetization avenue. It's a classic marketplace play here.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it, and thanks for being on. Like we've got to call it there. But like I said, it always goes a lot quicker than it seems to get quicker and quicker every time I record an episode. But there we go. But yeah, I'll let you go. I'm sure you have got a lot to do, so I'm going to let you go off and do it. But I really appreciate you being on with me today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I certainly did, and I'm sure we'll speak again soon. In fact, I have a feeling that we definitely will. But yeah, good luck with the app launch in 10 days. Good luck with the fundraising soon after that, and everything else. Yeah, as I say to everyone on this show, you've got a cheerleader in me. I can't wait to see where this all goes, and I'm sure it's going to be fantastic and very successful.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Greg. Very good to talk to you, and we'll be in touch for sure. Likewise.
All right, awesome. Well, have a great weekend. Yes, it's Friday. I just remembered. Have a great weekend, and yeah, we'll speak soon.
Cheers, Greg.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching and/or listening. Please like, subscribe, and join the conversation in the comments below.